For many years, I still don't know if it was just my childhood imagination. I used to tell friends that I saw something in my house. Usually I would say that it might have been a ghost, but honestly I have no idea. I can't say exactly how old I was, but I was definitely still in primary school. It happened in winter, in Poland in 2009 most likely, probably a few days after Christmas Eve, because I was playing with a Lego set that I got as a gift. It was already dark outside. The lights were on in my room and I was playing on the carpet across from the door that opened into a lit hallway. From that angle, looking out the door, I could see a wall and the banister around the space above the stairs. I was really focused on playing, my eyes were down, but for some reason, maybe because I noticed movement out of the corner of my eye, I looked up and glanced at the door. And that's when I saw it. From the left side of the doorframe, a figure slowly started to emerge. It must have been over 1 meter tall, but no taller than 1.5 meters. It had a strange color. Not so much the figure itself, but more like an aura surrounding it. Kind of a mix between purple and celadon. It was floating in the air, maybe 0.5 meter off the ground. Hard to say exactly. I was just a kid sitting on the floor, so I had to look up slightly. It had bent legs and a bit of a hunch, and in that position it slowly drifted to the right through the air. I don't remember what it was wearing exactly, but I know that it had clothes, purple for sure, pants and black leather shoes. It looked like a formal outfit. It appeared to be male. I remember it had a fairly large head, so big that it looked disproportionate to the rest of its body, with a black mop of hair and big ears. The face features were hard to tell. I saw it from the profile, definitely very prominent cheekbones and a big nose. I froze for about 3 seconds. I couldn't move, I was in shock, and then a wave of chills hit me and fear took over. I immediately looked back down at the Lego bricks and started pretending to play. In my head I was thinking, just pretend you're playing, maybe it won't notice you, and pretend that you didn't see it. But after a few seconds, I couldn't process what I had just seen, or even whether I had seen something, or if it was just my imagination. I might have believed that it was all in my head to this day, if not for what happened next. Curiosity won out, and I looked up again, without lifting my head too much because I was afraid it might still be there. And then I saw that from the right side of the doorframe, part of the figure was still visible. After a short moment, it completely moved out of view. I was stunned, terrified. I sat there for a while trying to gather the courage to run to my parents who were in the living room downstairs. When I finally managed to do so, I ran out of the room not looking to the right out of fear that it was still there, bolted down the stairs and sat on the couch next to my parents. I didn't say a word to them. I just took comfort in the feeling of safety, and I was scared they wouldn't take me seriously. I didn't have the strength to try and explain it to them because the emotions I had just gone through had completely drained me. That thing never even looked at me. It was like it didn't know that I had seen it. I didn't tell any of my friends at school either because I didn't want to be laughed at. For the next few days, I felt uneasy any time I played in my room, afraid I would see it again. It took years before I finally told anyone, usually after a few drinks and only in vague terms, just saying that I had seen something I couldn't explain, without going into detail, so I wouldn't sound like a weirdo. Has anyone else ever encountered something like this? Was it just my imagination? What keeps bothering me is that when I looked again, it was still there. If it weren't for that second glance, I wouldn't even think twice, and I would have just assumed that it was just my imagination. Hey, first time posting here. Hopeful that someone's had a similar experience or can help provide any answers or insight. So, I'm located in Akron, Ohio, in the USA. This happened in maybe 2022 or 2023. I can't exactly remember the year. I had just gotten home from working late one night. I used to test gas stations and would work late into the night most times. I got home around 2:45 to 3 a.m. and let my dogs out to go to the restroom, and when I was standing there, I got the overwhelming sensation to peek around the corner on my house toward my neighbors. And so I just barely peeked around the side of my house and looked into their backyard and saw something that truly freaked me out. Like the worst feeling I've ever experienced to date. And so, for context, it was late into the night, and it was a dark night. Maybe a crescent moon or even a new moon, either way, very dark outside. So, I had stepped back out with my dogs to get my stuff out of my work truck, and while they did their business, I set my stuff inside the side door of my house and walked back outside to them. After they finished up, I let them back inside, but before I could follow them, I got such an overwhelming feeling that I had to look around the corner of my house to my neighbors. I didn't know why, but I felt compelled to do it, so I just barely peeked my head around and saw this creature standing inside my neighbor's fenced-in backyard. It was standing at the back of the yard facing towards the woods, behind our houses. So it had its back toward my neighbor's house, and I was looking at its side profile. It stood maybe 6 to 7 feet tall, pale white skin, but was like bright, like a light was shining on it. But again, it was pitch black outside. I could see it perfectly, like I had shined a flashlight on it. It was very human-like, except that it had no clothes on and was muscular but smooth. Sorry if it's inappropriate, but it's necessary for the description. I could see it from head to toe, and it had no genitalia. Just a smooth body, bright pale skin, and was just standing there staring into the woods. As I was staring at this, just in absolute disbelief and shock at what I was seeing, while still hiding behind my house, essentially, it snapped its head toward me and stared directly at me. I didn't get any thoughts in my head besides, run. In a full panic, I ran inside my house, slammed the door behind me, and locked it, just waiting for whatever this creature was to come and get me. I've never felt fear like I did in that moment. I truly thought that it would come and get me and take me or kill me. I've never seen anything like that before or since. So, in summary, it was a 6 to 7 foot tall, bright pale, white skin, muscular but smooth body, completely naked but no clear genitalia. It stood staring into the woods inside the fenced-in backyard at the edge of the yard/fence. It didn't make any movements beside to snap its face toward me, and the closest thing I can find online to what it reminds me of is the creature from Prometheus, but it's still not the same at all. If anyone has any ideas or thoughts, I am all ears. I would love to know what this was. Thanks. Hello, long-time lurker in here. This happened back in 2009 in Puerto Rico, and we still don't know what it was. And recently another user shared a picture similar to what we saw. The encounter. It was back in 2009, 4 friends and I were walking home from a basketball game in a suburb that is near our neighborhood. It was around 8 p.m. and it was pretty dark. There were 2 ways to go into my neighborhood. The first one was the, quote, shortcut, which consisted of cutting through the middle of an abandoned paintball park in an open field, and it would take around 10 minutes to arrive to our homes. The second was the long way, which takes 25 to 30 minutes, walking in a bright area surrounded by houses and endless illuminated rows that finished right at the entrance of the abandoned park, and then about 5 minutes of walking in a semi-illuminated area. We took the shortcut, like we did every time, but this time everything was quiet. No animal sounds, abandoned dogs took shelter there, No car sounds from far, just pure silence. One of my friends decides to start talking about how it must be cool to play with a Ouija in the middle of the field as a joke. We tell him to shut up collectively because we were pretty scared. We all see the entrance of the park, and we all start getting less stressed and start talking again. We were about 100 feet from the entrance when we all hear and feel stomps coming from behind us. But not regular stomps. Heavy stomps like an elephant or a bull running. We looked back, and there was this strangely shaped creature with really dim red eyes. At first, it looked completely dark, but as it got closer, it was grayish and charging towards us. We collectively looked at each other and ran as fast as possible toward the entrance, and we managed to get out. While walking, there is a part of the street that briefly overlooks the field, and we all looked to see if we could see anything, but all we saw were the dim red dots looking directly at us. We all went home and the next day tried to figure out what had happened. 4 out of 5 of us can confirm this story. Sadly, one of my friends passed away a couple of years ago. I also moved, but have to travel every weekend through that area to visit my family, and it still gives me the creeps going through there at night. At 5, I encountered, spoke to, and physically touched the Sandown Clown. My experience was the subject of a listener episode of the Cryptonauts podcast, but I will do my best to give the cliff notes of my experience. At the time of the event, I was 4 or 5 years old, and the sun was beginning to descend. So, late afternoon at best. My memory of what happened sticks out because it would shape the things that I would draw as I grew older. I was sitting on a large boulder in my grandparents' backyard. It had been dug out for some time before me to make way for a large decorative fish pond that, by my time, was rarely used except to entertain me. My grandfather had just gone inside, and I knew enough to not go swimming in the gross water. It was at this time that I heard a noise to my right and turned. To the right of my grandparents' home was a neighbor's massive field. I can't remember what crop they grew, but the tall grass at the time probably means that it hadn't been used in a while. And standing in the grass was a figure with a scarecrow pose. Arms out, straight body. His hat was cone-shaped. His face features were wooden. He had a jack-o'-lantern face with an empty nose hole, but he still looked alive. When he talked, his mouth didn't move. I could hear him in my head, like telepathy. He gave off major clown vibes, which I was comfortable with as both parents did charity events as clowns. I would say that he was roughly 6 to 7 feet tall with wide shoulders. He wore scarecrow clothes, with patches of bright colors over pale brown and black. But what he said to me was what your podcast resparked in my memory, and left me with the distinct knowledge that not only was I not the only one anymore to have seen him, but that a vivid experience could have been something more sinister. He waved a wooden hand and I heard a voice say, "Hello, Sam. We are all colors?" I remember distinctly that he asked it as a question, and I responded with, "My name's Luke, not Sam." I wasn't scared. I felt calm and relaxed until the end of the encounter. He pointed at himself and did a short bow and then reached out into the field next to him and opened a door. The door had not been there before and was not attached to anything. I could see inside the gap of the door, and the room inside was green with wooden chairs. He motioned for me to come with him. I remember getting up off the boulder, walking with him through the door and being enveloped by bright red and green Christmas lights. They were as bright as the sun, and I had to close my eyes to keep from going blind, or so I thought. I woke up lying on my grandparents' couch. It was dark outside, and my parents rushed in when I called out to them. They'd found me half an hour before asleep in the middle of the field. having called out for me and not hearing me answer when things got dark. It was last year when I first started hearing about the Sam the Sandown Clown encounter, and I remarked how similar it was to my own encounter. I honestly believe they were either the same or slightly different entities as my own encounter. As it's been months since my encounter appeared on that podcast, I've been able to deal better with the newer information connected to my experience. Sam didn't try any tricks with me, like with the children from the Isle of Man. Sam's voice wasn't vocal, if that makes sense. It was like an echo hitting off of something and hearing that inside of my head rather than through my ears. Thinking it over, I believe the full sentence was, "Hello, Sam. We are all colors. Skip the starlight." The inside of the green room has come up again in my mind. I've tried remembering other details, and when I sat down and tried to nail down anything else about it, I distinctly recall that there were 2 empty wooden chairs and 2 occupied chairs further back. The door was see-through. I never saw a knob. I couldn't make out the details about the other people sitting in the chairs, but they had the same outline as, well, Sam. The hat, the head shape, long arms and legs, but details are just a void. Like when someone's face gets blurred to protect their identity. I thought that I would share my experience here, finally, as I feel much better about it than I did initially. This experience is one that I never shared with anyone beside my brother. When I was about 13 years old, I was living in rural British Columbia. One night, I was in the hot tub on the deck outside just watching the woods, taking in the silence. It was wintertime and we just recently had a snowfall that left around knee-high deep snow. It was around 2 to 3 a.m., and out of nowhere this very large wolf, bigger than one I have ever seen so far, came out of the woods. I remember its coat being a shimmering silver and its bright piercing green eyes. As this wolf was walking along the fence of our paddocks, it locked eyes with mine, and we just kind of stared at each other as he walked past me. Both alone in the middle of the night. In the middle of nowhere. What happened next to this day instantly makes my spine shiver. As the wolf walked past, he walked towards our barn with our horses in it. It became darker as it entered the barn, but the other side of the barn still had a bright light illuminating the outside that I could clearly see. This wolf, as it entered halfway through, it went from the shape of a wolf to a very large, broad-shouldered person. The horses didn't make a single sound, and this person now stood roughly 7 feet tall, rounded the corner toward the open field, but didn't emerge from the other side. And I never saw it again. My brother had his own encounter with the same wolf, I'm guessing. He told me that he woke up randomly one night from the feeling of being watched. He then looked out his window to see a very large wolf walking away from his window. So I'm guessing it was watching him sleep. This place we lived at was old native ground. Our barn was an old school house where the Catholic priest would put the native children and teach them the lessons on Christ. It even had the old desk and chairs still inside. My brother and I both saw children's faces in the panes of glass from that barn and lights turn on randomly. We had closet doors slam repeatedly for minutes at a time, footsteps, and feelings of being watched. In my room, I saw glowing eyes on the ceiling and hid under my covers until morning. Anyways, my main subject of this post, and what I'm more so seeking answers for, is what did I encounter outside in the middle of the night? After I looked around myself, the closest thing I could find was skinwalkers or wendigos. But from what I read, these creatures have deformed features or things that make them uncanny or straight up horrific. What I saw, nothing struck me as abnormal about this wolf besides its massive size, until it literally changed its entire form in front of me. I know this is a long-winded read. Sorry, I'm not a great storyteller, and there's just so much that I experienced at this property that this just scratches the surface to everything. The wolf incident is just something I've never really been able to grasp, and I always wanted some kind of answers because it feels and sounds unbelievable. I also understand that the term skinwalker is Navajo lore and doesn't correlate with British Columbian tribes, but this is just a representation of what I saw with the closest accuracy. Me and 4 of my friends were in the Russian countryside this winter. We stayed at one of my friends' houses from mid-December to the beginning of January, about 20 kilometers east of Moscow. On the night before New Year's, we had a terrifying encounter with something horrible. It was 1:30 a.m. and we had stayed at the house all day, ate pizza, watched movies, and played Mortal Kombat. We had also been to the sauna and had all been in good spirits, as later that day it would be New Year's. We were outside my friend's house, which overlooks a very small valley, about 10 meters in depth and 60 meters in length, and we were blowing up some firecrackers that we had prepared. His house is quite isolated, with the nearest neighbor about 100 meters away. We blew them up one by throwing them into the valley that was next to the house. As we were doing this, I was the first to notice a black silhouette with a glowing cigarette in the distance, moving toward us extremely fast. I immediately notified everyone with me and told them to get inside the house's courtyard. My friends saw the figure. We were confused as to who it may be and what they were doing, but weren't worried as the figure was a very long way away. And we had at least 2 minutes before he got close enough to the property to see our faces or do anything. I looked back at the figure and immediately noticed that his eyes had a faint glow. Nothing crazy or bright, just a very faint yellow, goldish glow. Similar to the way a cat's eyes reflect light in the darkness. I also noticed that the figure had traveled a very large distance in the 5 seconds I took to turn around and inform my friends. This was especially worrying as he was walking, not running. I immediately knew that it was time to leave. I ran towards the gate to the house and yelled for my friends to follow me, which, after witnessing what I had witnessed, they obliged. Except one of them. One of our friends looked frozen in fear. His eyes were wide open, his mouth slightly open too, and he was not blinking. This entire time he was looking at the figure. I ran and pushed him in order to get him to move, which made him snap out of some sort of light trance, as he was slightly lost. By this point, the figure was about 100 meters away, and nearly at the same time, all of us were filled by a visceral feeling of dread. Not fear, but more like, whatever is happening right now is very, very wrong. We later realized that this probably emanated from the man. As we were entering the garden and ducking behind the fence, we noticed that the man was moving a minimum of 5 times as fast as a regular person running, while making absolutely no noise even though he was walking. We hid behind the fence for ages and managed to get a picture of him from underneath the fence. He then walked into the nearby woods, leaving behind absolutely no footprints and making no noise at all. I have no clue what this was, but we're 100% sure that whatever this was not human. Quick update. I forgot to add, but one of my friends said that the man apparently turned into smoke at one point. Like white smoke, and then materialized again. I'm not sure if I believe him, as nobody else saw it. My grandmother died almost 17 years ago, and I was recently talking to my mom about the stories that she would tell me. And there was one story in particular that had slipped my mind until she reminded me about it. It always creeps me out. I've never really experienced paranormal things, but I've always been interested, albeit skeptical. This happened in Manchester, England around 1953, a few hours after my grandma had just given birth to my Uncle John, which was a home birth. During the night, my Nana was lying in bed trying to sleep with my newborn uncle, but had struggled to drift off due to the baby fussing. She told me that she was laying on her back with my uncle on her chest, and the room was pretty much pitch black aside from the streetlights coming in through the net curtains. She tried to drift off, but then started to feel a little uneasy as though she was being watched. That sort of feeling that makes your skin prickle and hairs stand on end. The next minute, she heard a whistling coming from the side of the bed, so she looked to her right, and she said that she saw a really tiny man in a suit and top hat grinning at her from the floor below. She said that he seemed full of mischief, and almost seemed to be mocking her and the baby by pointing at them and making a hand on the stomach and laughing motion. He then was kind of dancing around and tipping his hat, and jumping from one foot to the other, still laughing and pointing. And he jumped on the bed and came even closer to them and then did the same motions. She remembered feeling a sense of dread, as though it was trying to get across the thought that she wouldn't have that baby for very long, or that it knew something she didn't. She was terrified and closed her eyes thinking it was some kind of hallucination due to exhaustion, and ended up drifting off to sleep. My Uncle John, sadly, died via brain aneurysm after being beaten with a baseball bat by car thieves in 1980. And she's adamant that the being knew his fate and was rubbing it in. She didn't feel it was a warning, but a celebration, almost. She said that she constantly thought back to the little man and it gave her the creeps. She had quite a lot of paranormal experiences in general, but unfortunately I've forgotten a lot of the stories that she told me. It made my hairs stand on end when she told me this story for some reason. She said that it was dancing like and resembled the little man from Twin Peaks, but obviously much smaller. Has anyone else experienced this phenomena? And drug-induced hallucination was a thought that crossed my mind, and thanks for reading. This happened a long time ago. I was around 13 or 14 in northwestern Georgia, on the corner of Alabama and Tennessee. For context, I'm 22 now. I was at my stepdad's house, which is situated down a long driveway in the woods. There's a house just ahead of his separated by a thin veil of trees, but no other houses or buildings for a good few miles on either side. And the woods in the back go on for a good while, so it's very isolated. I had taken my dog Jack out to pee. Rip Jack, he died a while back. And as I walked down the stairs of the deck with him, he stops and starts to growl and whimpers toward the woodline, along the right side of the house. I thought maybe there was a coyote or something, so I walked towards the woodline to get a better view to see what he was freaked out by. I see something just barely in sight. It stood a good 6 to 7 feet tall, and had patches of fur like mange, a short snout, was very canine looking, but kind of had a human-like face just staring at me. I backed up, grabbed Jack, ran up the stairs, and locked the front door behind me. I never saw it after that, and it didn't make any moves other than when it was looking at me, but it spooked me so bad that I refused to go outside or even anywhere within the house by myself, to the point that I was too scared to even leave my room to use the bathroom. Yes, I did have a few accidents. I know that's gross and embarrassing, but I was a kid and was freaked out. Now that I'm older, I've started to wonder, maybe I imagined it, or maybe it was misidentified, but who knows. Edit. I'm now able to go outside and stuff. I even avidly hike and work for the State Park Service now, so don't worry about that. But even now, I don't like to be at my stepdad's house as it gives me the creeps, and I always feel like something is watching me. My friends and I saw this on the night that I'm writing this, in the late hours November 30th and the early morning of December 1st, 2024. We live in southern Arizona and are all staying the night at one friend's house for a birthday party. Her house is known between all of us as the haunted house, since we're always experiencing weird things there. But this time, right after the sun had set, we were sitting on the porch in the backyard when one of us yelled and pointed at the chest-high brick fence, saying that she just saw a bald white human head poke itself over the fence. Two of us immediately ran over and looked over the fence to see nothing. We laughed that off, but it was the first sighting of the night. We hung out outside a little longer until we decided to check over the fence again. And while we were doing so, we heard scuttering on the other side of the fence, out of view. We joked about it and just went inside instead. Skip to a while later, we went outside again, and almost right away, someone saw a head pop up around another fence. Again, we all thought it was nothing, but more of us started seeing a head, hands, and part of a back. At that point, we were scared as hell and started going back inside, when one friend stayed back and scared the living crap out of us, but she was just standing and looking. We stayed there for a while, now with one friend holding a broom. They lost their broom privileges soon after, and we kept seeing small things of white and some of the same things from before. Our other friends, previously inside, came out again, scaring the crap out of us, and we all started talking about things that we saw and what it could have been, when we kept seeing things. And eventually, two people heard a growling. It was very clear they both weren't faking. We all ran inside and started panicking, trying to reason with the fact that there was a skinny, bald white man crawling outside. We eventually found this, and thank goodness, because, believe it or not, it made us all feel much better. This was our story. Do you think it's real, or are we just crazy teenagers? So that, my friends, was what I have marked as a humanoid stories collection, though some of these were just kind of like cryptids, so I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what to call this. I'm gonna keep the title humanoid just because, I already made the thumbnail. And these were all from the humanoid subreddit, so humanoid encounters, so I don't know. They were all human in some way, right? Humanoid, human-esque, human-related in some way, shape, or form, so yeah. Genuinely terrifying cryptid and humanoid encounters today, and they kind of freaked me out because they were creepy. So, hopefully you all enjoyed this collection of stories. I did, of course. And of course, a huge thank you to those on Reddit that let me use their stories. It's fun getting stories from Reddit sometimes, not getting them from listeners. I get a lot from listeners, but I don't get a ton, so... I mean, I do get... A majority of my stuff is listeners, but like these kind of stories, I don't get a ton, that's what I mean. Cryptid stories, a lot of them do come from Reddit, but always willing to accept new stories on cryptids encounters if you have them, so hint, hint, send them my way. Anyways, what am I saying? If you enjoyed the stories, please hit the like button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, please consider subscribing. If you're feeling bold and would like to leave me a comment, please do so. Say hi, how's it going? Let me know which story you found to be the scariest or the creepiest, or which creature you feel is the most terrifying, in my opinion. Yeah, just let me know. You can listen to the podcast on other platforms like Spotify, Audible, Apple Podcast. You can send in your stories to astheravendreams.com or astheravendreams@gmail.com. Support the channel further and get early access through Patreon or memberships, all listed down below. You can also go to astheravendreams.com and find all my social medias, all my other stuff, just everything to follow me on. I'm just kind of jabbering here, so hopefully you're having a great week so far and a great rest of your week. Hope I see you again here soon, but until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you're the best you that you can be. Don't forget it. Until next time, my friends, much love and sleep well.